Okay, we have in studio with us another candidate for Los Alamitos Unified School District Board. A total of 5 candidates. Candidate number 2, Connor Swan Smith. Welcome
Great to be
to
here.
Backstory. And I want to begin by asking you the question that, well, I'll ask everybody the same question starting out. And it basically, I'll put it to you. What makes you uniquely qualified, in your mind, to sit on a board seat in the Los Alamitos Unified School District?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think that especially, I just came through the whole district. I graduated from the high school, class of 2017. I went to McGaw and Oak. So I've just been through the whole district all the way. I know what it's like to be a student in the district now. And there's nobody on the board or running for the board who represents that that group of people. Nobody who talks for the student. And I think especially that the board now has a somewhat of a disconnect from the students and the teachers, and I think that I am in a great position to rebridge that and make sure that they're taking care of the students' needs and making sure that they get what they need.
Mm-hmm. You just graduated last year, 2017.
Yes.
And now you're on to your college career at UCI.
Yeah.
And I guess your quarter's about to begin,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have a particular perspective on campus life, and especially from a student point of view, about what is actually going on campus at Los Alamitos High School and maybe even at the middle school. Are students being represented at the school? I noticed that recently there was a demonstration by students wanting to voice their opinion about the terrible shootings at Parkland and others. Parkland just this year, but all of the other shootings, Sandy Hook, and just got to a point, and students were very concerned, I know, and they took it to the streets basically, but were not allowed to take it into the campus. They were allowed to teach in for an hour or so, but they had to take essentially their grievances to the street. And that's when I began to sense that there may be some disconnects between the students, maybe the students and not necessarily the teachers, because actually there were some teachers out there with them too. But students and administration, I'll just say, did you get that sense when you were going to the high school or even at the middle school?
Yeah, I think that there's I want to give credit to the teachers. I think that they do a really great job and are very close with the students and know what's going on. But I do think that as you get higher up, especially with the school board now, there's just a big separation between them and everybody else. Everybody kind of works closely together. I feel like the teachers not only are close with students, but make the students feel really good about participating in what happens in the schools. And I think that's, one of the reasons that I'm sitting here today was because of the teachers at Los Al and in the district.
Okay. And of course those are recent recollections for you too. So your input would be very fresh, I would think. Do you think that there are issues, particularly at the high school campus, that are not seeing the light of day, reaching the board, issues that are of concern to you that you think are not, that maybe even the superintendent or the board may not even be completely aware of?
Yeah, I think that there's currently a big problem, has been a big problem with juuling, vaping in the campuses.
What's juuling?
So juuling is basically, it's one brand of electronic cigarettes, but it's sort of become like Kleenex, just sort of a generic name for the whole thing now. But
It's like vaping.
it's like vaping, it's nicotine. And they're designed originally for adults to quit smoking, so they're made to be discreet and small. They can fit in like a sleeve. And this is something that's happened just in the past like year or two that has really exploded. And
On campus,
on campus, in classrooms.
in classrooms, during class?
And
Well, how does, I know what vaping is. I know it, creates a cloud of smoke. I can see it, and the guy driving in front of it blows it out the window of his car, and it's this murky cloud.
yeah.
How do they get away with that in the classroom?
And this is one of the reasons I think that being connected with the students is so important, because you don't learn about how stuff like this works and how they do it, so that you can look out for it and proactively help the situation. Is they basically, oftentimes they'll put the jewel in their sleeve, they'll inhale from it, breathe it back out into their mouth, and then swallow it again, and the cloud is gone.
So does it create a cloud? But they just inhale the cloud too, or?
Yeah.
But it does create a cloud of sorts, like vaping.
It does, yeah.
Oh,
If
okay.
if they don't do the trick.
But they inhale it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and the teachers don't pick up on it?
No, I don't think that they know what to look for. And unfortunately, it's designed to be discreet, so that's not any help. But that's the way it is.
Okay. Are there other issues? We used to think we had a drug problem at the campus. Can we say at this point that, are drugs under control at Los Alamitos High School, would you say?
I would say they are. They're never going to completely go away, and they haven't completely gone away. But as far as it being a specific issue to Los Al compared to other schools, I think it's basically gone down to almost nothing.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. But it's been replaced by juuling.
Yeah.
Okay, juuling. All right, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you then, if you were to ascend, become a board member in the Los Alamitos Unified School District, what would be the first few things that you would want to address on campus that you feel, having been currently a student on campus and seeing just how the whole process works, what would you say would be some very important issues from a student's standpoint to address if you were a board member on Los Alamitos Unified School District?
Well, I'd say that's a big one, the juuling.
It's really that big, reaching epidemic proportions on campus, would you say?
It's a lot of people.
Wow, okay.
But I would say a big one is sort of with the board, getting the board involved and making sure they're going and visiting classrooms, not waiting for teachers to try to come to them, but actually going to people, figure out what's going on in the district to make sure that programs that they have are effective and working, and see what else needs to be done.
Other issues you think are important that are not being addressed, that are going beneath the surface at the high school, that you think are important as a board member you would bring up?
Well, I think at the high school there is a huge push and emphasis to make sure that every student goes to some form of college, whether it's a community college or like a state school or a private school, but any type of college, no matter what might be best for them. And I think that for a lot of people, especially in today's economy, that's a that college has become more necessary than it has been. But I think there is a lot of people who that's not necessarily the best option, especially to be pushed in it for both educational and financial and just overall success. I don't think everybody needs that necessarily, and it's not necessarily the best thing for everybody.
I know at one time there were some fairly advanced automotive shop, and there was carpentry shop at the high school, and I recall that. And there were ROP programs. I don't know how significant they are, but I mean, in terms of a career path, we had automotive shop, and we had classes for the trades. Are they not there anymore?
They aren't. I know they do have the ROP classes. I can't remember exactly how many they have now, but even that, students are still. It's sort of more like a sort of hobby or fun class to take rather than an alternative to going to a four-year school.
So it's not considered a serious career path at Los Alamitos High School.
Right, and I would say even the ROP classes, it seemed to me when I was signing up for classes that there was not as much information or help given about taking the classes. I mean, when you took a class at the high school, like the engineering or woodshop class, that was, you just signed up for the class and you took it there on the high school. And it was pretty straightforward and welcoming and easy.
Yeah. So, what do you think happens to these kids that then are not quite Ivy League bound, in terms of high school, test scores, AP scores, and don't go through the fast tracking for STEAM and the other programs that prepare one for, the 4-year college degree route? What happens to these kids?
Well, I think a lot of them, and I've seen, and it hasn't even been that long since I've been out of high school, but even of my friends, a lot of them have, some of them have either like had to transfer down to schools because of money reasons, or some of them just drop out, or I think some of them, continue and maybe get a degree, but are still not really sure what they want to do with their lives after they've gotten it. They still haven't figured that out.
So if you were elected to the board at Los Alamitos Unified School District, what would you try and do? How would you try and fix this problem?
Well, I think a big thing is that it's kind of an attitude problem with just how the issue is treated when it comes to counselors and help. It's all about, what's the right college for you, and what college should you go to? What college can we get you into so that you can go to a college, instead of what you want to do, what you're good at, what would be maybe a good ending position for you long term.
Okay. So, and that's not being addressed right now by the counselors, or typically, or there's a bias, let's just say, toward pushing people into four-year college-bound degree-directed paths.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I want to broach a subject that I've done with others as well, candidates for Los Alamitos Unified School District, Connor, and it looms very large on the horizon. In fact, on November 6th, on the same ballot you're on as a candidate for the board, is a measure, and it's called G.
Yeah.
And that measure G is a bond, essentially, that the school district wants to float a second bond in 10 years, this time for $97 million, I believe. And they're asking voters and taxpayers to foot the bill for modernization of, among other things, but primarily the high school.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your opinion about that, being fresh from the high school and knowing firsthand as a student what's needed over there, what's necessary, what's not. What's your opinion of Measure G on the ballot on November 6th?
Well, I can tell you that, first of all, I think that there's a lot of things at the high school, what they talk about a lot in the language for supporting Measure G. There's a lot of buildings at the high school that are just basically in complete disrepair. I mean, they're portable classrooms that were meant to be there a couple years, and they've been there for, I don't know, like 40 years. They've been there a long time. They're falling apart. They're not real. They're not real classrooms. They're a temporary solution that got dragged out. So I think there is work that needs to be done at the high school to modernize it. One thing I think about Measure G is that there is first of all, in Measure K, the last bond that they did pass, they wanted to
10 years ago.
Yeah, they wanted to modernize the high school with that one. And at that time, the high school is actually the most modern campus. So they modernized all the campuses except the high school. And they ran out of money, I guess, for the high school. They never modernized it. So one thing that concerns me about Measure G is that there's a few things on the measure that have nothing to do with making sure that the high school is a modern campus, and certain things that would cost quite a bit of money that aren't modernizing the high school.
Can you point to a few of those items?
Yeah, such as one big part of it is putting security fencing and security cameras on all the campuses, and not just the high school, which all the other campuses have already been modernized, but they want to do work on those as well. So their primary push for passing Measure G is modernizing the high school.
Mm.
That's a big, expensive part of the measure that is only part of it's going to be for the high school. And so I worry about that kind of taking over some prominence from getting the high school done, which does need to be done. So
You mean providing security measures at all the other campuses?
Yeah, which some of the things that they talk about in the measure for that would be very expensive. So one thing is that they also wanted to put in stalls throughout the high school, or they're called like blue towers, where it's basically you can just press a button. They have them on a lot of college campuses, where you can press a button and talk to like emergency services right away, which they have them on a lot of college campuses because there's a lot of issues at nighttime, especially with safety. But there's not a lot of people walking alone on the campuses at the high schools at nighttime. So I'm not really convinced that that's a major issue. And it might be nice to have them, but they're extremely expensive.
Do you feel that the cameras and the security fences and all the other safety measures, so-called, that they would put in at the campuses, particularly at the high school, and this go-round, is not the right way to look at safety for students at the campus? What would you suggest instead?
Well, I mean, I think that kind of almost worsens the issue. I mean, it's hard if there's fences. It's not going to keep anybody who intends to do harm out, because there's still ways to get into the school. Even with the fences, there's always entrance points for students to get in. And if somebody were to get in, like say a shooter who wanted to do harm to people at the high school, once they're in, now it's tough to get out of the high school. And so you have kind of an opposite effect.
I mean, do a lot of kids look at it that way? I mean, do they see it that way? Is that how a lot of kids at the schools are seeing themselves, like penned in?
I think it kind of creates an atmosphere of like you said, being sort of fenced in, being penned in, and not like a school.
If they secured it all with fencing. Yeah, I see. Interesting. Is there a great sense of anxiety, an increased sense of anxiety among the students at the high school now? You're just fresh from the campus as a graduate in 2017. Have you noticed a heightened sense of anxiety on the part of the students?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that it's kind of inevitable with the not just like the shootings, but the whole political atmosphere and climate that's sort of been building and boiling over the last few years.
Have students at the campus, particularly at the high school, I mean, have you noticed more confrontation among students and clashing about over what you call politics?
Yeah, I think it's just become more divided.
Even among the students?
Even among the students. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who don't want to be involved with politics or have any interest in politics or national issues, especially at that age. But it's become more and more difficult to, not have an opinion about some of these things.
Have you noticed, have there been confrontations on campus? I mean, just one-on-one, or people making, catcalling other kids, or is that going on? I
mean, yeah, there's been some drama. I've experienced, like, sort of from by political views, it can get pretty divisive. I mean, it's never gotten, like, out of control. I'd say it's never been, like, physical that I've seen. But there's definitely division between, like, us and them, I'd say.
Who's them?
Well, just whatever side you're on, and the other side.
Okay, more than you've ever seen before.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's concerning. Well, we only have so much time. I wish we had a lot more time. I could ply your fresh mind and your experiences recently from the campus, from the campuses of the high school and middle school. I want to end our interview, though, by asking you a question that I'm sure some people would want you to answer, and that is, well, you're off to college life. You transitioned to that through the AP program and transitioned to UCI. You're a music major. You went through high school benefiting from the great tutelage of Dave Molenkamp, I understand, and his choir, which you had 4 years of, I take, and you're pursuing a music career at the University of California, Irvine.
Yes, music and education.
Right. How the heck are you going to have time? Do you live currently in Los Alamitos, or are you out there?
I live in Seal Beach.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I've lived there my whole life, and so I'm commuting to UC Irvine, and I'm still in the district every day, sleeping at night.
Well, sleeping's one thing, but during your how are you going to carve out some waking hours to participate in the Los Alamitos Unified School District Board? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I have. I purposely reduced my course load from last quarter to accommodate for this. I knew that I was going to be running for this and trying to take this on. So I've purposely decreased my course load. But I would say that I definitely have the time to do it, and I'm passionate about it. So I'll always put it. It's going to be like school and this. And I think a lot of basically everybody on the board has full-time jobs. Some of them not, but a lot of them do.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So I don't see it any differently than that.
Okay. All right. Well, congratulations on your college career.
Thank you.
A guy who knows where he's going. Connor Swan Smith, candidate for Los Alamitos Unified School District Board, and hoping for your vote on November 6th. We'll be back.